Well, welcome back into Sports Extras. We take a little deeper dive into the Panthers' loss today, their fifth to start the season. To help me do that, let's bring in WRAL's Chris Lee. Chris, he's just wanting to cover a winning franchise. He also wants to be a fan of one. But boy, Chris, the turnovers are not going to help your cause here. It's been kind of a theme as this season has gotten underway. Today, they had 3 more, and that really is what caused the damage that they just couldn't get out of. Is this a little bit of growing pains of Bryce Young? Is he not being put maybe in the right situations, or is it a little bit of both?
I think it's a little bit of both for today. I think the first turnover for him, that's just a great play by Aiden Hutchinson, right? And that's one of those where it might be a welcome to the NFL moment for Bryce Young. You have somebody who's hyper athletic like Aiden Hutchinson, made a great individual play and then ended up being a turnover for the Carolina Panthers. So maybe in the future, Bryce Young throws that one into the dirt when that screen isn't there. And then that second one, I think this is the one where that was on Bryce Young. You have to understand what's happening in that coverage. The DB that picked him off was down on Ian Thomas. And this is no disrespect to Ian Thomas, but it's not like a lot of DBs are going to stay down on Ian Thomas in that situation. You're going to ease back and try to, get on the wide receiver. And I think he was trying to go to Jonathan Mingo at that point. So you got to be able to understand that coverage and see what happens. But I will say this, though. Overall, I think that the Panthers played a better offensive game, but we've seen how turnovers have really shifted the tide in their games throughout the season, right? This game felt like the first game of the season against the Atlanta Falcons, where you have the 3 turnovers, all 3 turnovers equal points, except this was against a better team who has a better defense and also a better offense in the Detroit Lions. All of those turnovers turned into touchdowns. We can't play the if game, but if we didn't have those 3 turnovers, well, the Lions don't have at least 21 points. They probably would have made up for it, at least maybe with another possession. But that's one of the things that the Panthers, this game could have been a lot closer for them if you don't turn it over. And then we remember back against the Saints game, it's a strip sack. And then, of course, that turnover, then that helps the Saints out. Last week, strip sack for the Minnesota Vikings completely changes the tide of the game. And then the Panthers end up losing that one. And then today with the 3 turnovers, the Panthers have to keep the possession of the ball if they want to have a chance to win games.
Well, something we've seen not just, maybe this year, but last year too, the Panthers defense was able to maybe not always win them games, but they were definitely able to keep them in games. But boy, today, a leaky defense, especially on run defense. Is this a one-off today, Chris, or do you see something a little deeper there?
Well, it could be deeper because you remember they're down 4 starters. There's no Dante Jackson. He was inactive today with a shoulder injury. Of course, Shaq Thompson probably out for the season. Xavier Woods out with the hamstring injury. J.C. Horn is going to be out for a significant amount of time with his hamstring injury. So they were definitely missing those guys, and you could see where those guys could have helped them out. But still, you are the heart and soul of this team if you're the Carolina Panthers defense. And if the Carolina Panthers will have any hope of being into games or even winning a game, hopefully they can win at least one game this season, the defense will have to play well. You could tell it wasn't going to be a good day when on the first drive, the Detroit Lions go 3 plays, 81 yards in 1 minute and 17 seconds and score probably one of the easiest touchdowns I've seen scored on the Carolina Panthers defense in a while. When you have a drive like that is that easy, things are not going to go well for you. And I know that they were put in a bad situation with those turnovers. But when you have those turnovers, you have to try to hold a team to 3 as much as possible. Brian Burns, yes, he got a sack, but he got a sack in the second half when the game pretty much was already done and over, right? It was already in hand for the Lions. Brian Burns did not have an impact on this game. Nobody on that defensive line or that pass rush had an impact on this game. And, of course, the Panthers didn't come up with a turnover themselves. So there's going to be some soul searching for this Panthers defense. I know that they're put in horrible situations. They've got a lot of injuries that they're dealing with. Their offense doesn't do them any favors. But you know that challenge, and you have to rise to the occasion if you want to get any type of wins this season if you're the Carolina Panthers defense.
Well said there for sure. Now, you kind of alluded to it, those injuries that are piling up. And today, earlier in the game, it didn't look like it was going to get any better when Chandler Zavala was carted off. There is some good news surrounding him. He was discharged from the hospital. But boy, Chris, those injuries, as they pile up, this kind of early in the season, it doesn't help this team as they move any further. What's the biggest challenge as this team moves ahead, as these injuries do start to pile up?
Yeah, it's really showing that the Carolina Panthers don't have the depth that they probably thought they had, and especially now on the offensive line. Austin Corbett, of course, he should be coming back pretty soon, but he was the only injury coming into the season on that offensive line. And then Brady Christensen ends up tearing his bicep, and then he's out for the season. So that's not good for the Carolina Panthers either. And then another guard now, Chandler Zavala, going down. The good news is he's flying back to Charlotte with the team. So that's good news. We'll see what happens during the week, if he'll be ready to play next week or whatever the case may be. It doesn't seem as dire as it looked like on the field. But now the Carolina Panthers have to go into the offseason. And yes, I'm in week 5 talking about the offseason. We need depth, because it's clear that outside of when you get some of the these injuries happening, it's clear that outside of those people injured, you don't have people that can step in and do a good job for you and keep the level of play up to where it needs to be for them. So that is probably the main thing that I think this is going to teach the team, and hopefully the Panthers can kind of grow from this, and maybe the reps will help somebody else and become a better player for next year. But boy, it's just showing that they don't really have anything behind their starters to help them out whatsoever.
Grow from it, or as Frank Reich said today after the game, they just have to keep pounding. Chris, the Panthers are going to keep pounding when they go down to Miami next week, and that's where we will catch you next. Chris Lee, thank you so much.